Hey guys, welcome back to the Has Project. I know it's been a while, but here we are. I wanted to talk about the Suicide Squad. I figured this would be a perfect time to come back, create some videos. I had a little hiatus, but that it doesn't matter at the moment. Right now, we're going to talk about the James Gunn directed DC film that everyone's been clamoring about, and I finally got a chance to check it out last night. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a breath of fresh air for DC content, and it was exactly what I expected it to be. Just an R-rated Guardians vibe. Like, it wasn't exactly like shot for shot what Guardians is. There's elements of it that scream Guardians, but at the end of the day, they really do a good job. Like, James Gunn does a really great job depicting the differences between the Suicide Squad and the Guardians. They're two different groups. The Guardians is very much a family, and the Suicide Squad are just an ensemble of bad guys who have their own agendas. And in this movie, that idea is explored so much more than the original film back in 2016, directed by David Ayer, which I know he's come out recently, said that that's not his film, but hey, I would like to check out a potential Ayer cut in the future. I mean, just look how well that turned out for Zack Snyder in his film. Like, that is such a beautiful film compared to the garbage fest that became the 2017 version. Like, it was alright when it was the only thing that existed, but then when we found out that the 4-hour cut existed, it was like, nah. Anyways, we're getting off topic. We're not here to talk about the Snyder cut. It's about James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Again, really freaking good. The characters were so much more compelling than the ones in the 2016. Yeah, I like Will Smith. His whole thing in that movie was fine, I guess. It was a little bit of a cliche, and it just felt like I was there to see Will Smith. Like, I didn't care about Deadshot as a person. I just liked to see Will Smith in a super flick. Like, that was really cool. I liked him in Hancock. That's the only reason really why I actually still like Hancock to this day, and I really enjoyed the meshing of Will Smith in a superhero genre. Like, it just fits. Gunn's Suicide Squad is about as much of a sequel as it is a reboot. It's very weird. Like, it serves as a continuation for Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag, and Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang. But they don't make any references to the Birds of Prey film or the first Suicide Squad film from 2016. It just feels like a fresh start, if you will. After seeing what this movie is and what the Snyder Cut was months ago when we watched it, I'm starting to realize I don't really care if all the DC movies don't connect. I don't mind if they're in their little pocket universes. As long as, like, they're good movies, I'm fine. Like, I'm excited for the ones that are coming, like Black Adam, Shazam 2, and whatever, the Flash movie. As long as they're good, I don't need them all to be connected. This is going to be a non-spoiler, by the way. I just want to touch upon the connectivity of this movie with other films. They make mention of a superhero or two. They make mention of Superman in one of the trailers, but there is no connective tissue to Henry Cavill or anything like that. It's pretty much like by itself. It's isolated in its own world, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't have to be. I feel like James Gunn thrived behind the scenes making this movie, and I also feel like he runs into corners when he's within the Marvel bubble trying to fit his movie into their plans, because that's essentially what any director does in Marvel. They're trying to add their flavor while also having to fit the mold of Phase 4 or Phase 5. So they don't have any of those restrictions over at DC. Hell, they were offering James Gunn anything he wanted. Superman was on the table. James Gunn realized that Suicide Squad plays to his strengths more, and he could do something different that hasn't been done before, or at least was attempted at back in 2016 and really just didn't live up to its potential. It's also funny how this movie, directed by the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy, made the 2016 version look like it was trying to copy Guardians of the Galaxy. This one, like I said, has that vibe, but it is not at all a Guardians ripoff or trying to be Guardians. This is very different. This is a world where bad guys exist, craziness happens, and a lot of wackiness is all over the screen, but real bad guys exist, and there's stakes in this crazy, wacky world. When you have a team of ragtag, mercenary, bad people who are just put in cells for the most outlandish things, or because they just have the most outlandish powers, like Polka Dot Man, who throws polka dots at people, like what? Like, and then there's a weasel who, I don't know, is the most aesthetically gross person in this movie, I think, but it's just so amusing to look at. When you have this wacky group of meta-humans pushed into this task force so they can see out these Black Ops missions, it can get wild at times, and they explored a little bit of that, which I really did like in the Suicide Squad from 2016, but at the end of the day, the vibe of the group was too family friendly. I couldn't buy into these maniacs, these killers, all of a sudden just loving each other at the end. They were all good with each other. Like, it was a little too family friendly in that movie. In here, there are stakes, and like the posters say, like all of the individual character posters say, don't get too attached, because even themselves in the movies, none of them can handle each other. They're always bickering. There's always banter between members of the group. It definitely made for some very entertaining dialogue exchanges, especially between John Cena's Peacemaker and Idris Elba's Bloodsport, whom I just never thought I'd want to be on screen together, but I do, because they're incredible with each other. Their banter back and forth, trying to best one another, just made for some laugh out loud moments that I can't wait to go back and watch, because it's just full of humor. Now, if you guys have seen my videos before, you know I'm all about scores. I love movie scores. I think they can be very impactful to a point where they make me tear up and cry. Like the scene of the Flash running back in time in Snyder Cut. Like, stuff like that I really appreciate in films. The score in this film isn't my favorite. It's definitely not the best score I've ever heard, but when it's there, it's effective. It carries the scene to the point that it needs to, and I just found it really effective in certain points. It actually made for some slightly emotional moments in this movie. Like, I didn't cry or anything, like, but it was very emotional for some parts, and I think the score is a big part of that. I've seen numerous of action films where they just had this generic music playing in the background, and it just downplays what's actually happening on the screen. When you have a great composer who's able to access files within your mind and make you feel things as you're watching someone else's work, the cinematographer at hand, like, they can make you feel emotional, and the music can just amplify that. It's hard to explain, but I truly feel like there is something to the combination of cinematography and soundtrack. Just when you get both of them right, it can make for a very powerful emotional reaction. Visual effects in this movie, freaking phenomenal, dude. There's some moments where I'm just like, yo, I would have never thought of this. I really wouldn't have. There's an action sequence with Harley Quinn that just kind of lets you live in her world and how she sees it, and it was just very unique. I just never would have thought to go there, but they did, and I was pleasantly surprised. The King Shark, man, oh my god. Talk about comedic relief, but talk about great visuals as well. It was bizarre to see a shark formed this way, but it looked real. It kind of looked real. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It looked real. It looked good. It didn't look practical, because obviously, like, you'll notice when something's kind of practical, but I'll be surprised if this was practical and I'm saying that it's not. But I'm just saying, it was really, like, visually appealing, and I would like to see more of King Shark, maybe in a sequel to this movie, or maybe he pops up in the Peacemaker show that's coming up. And by the way, let's talk about John Cena's Peacemaker real quick. That is probably his best performance, hands down. Like, he showcased some heel Cena, something that us wrestling fans have always wanted for years now. He explored that vibe and that area in the Fast 9, which, you know, that I didn't do a video on it because that movie just hurt my head. But I think this movie showcases how much of a badass and how much of an evil person Cena can be, and I think he pulled that role off really well. Like, he could probably play off as like this Captain America like superhero. I mean, he did it for 10 plus years in the WWE as himself, because he's a superhero in real life. Come on, and I just really think he pulled it off. He showed some really great acting chops in this. He was going head to head with Idris Elba, who's a fantastic actor. And yeah, I think he held his own, and I think that his show is gonna kill. Like, I had no interest whatsoever in this show. I had no interest in Peacemaker beyond, like, his outfit looked kind of cool. Like, he looked interesting. I like bright, bold colors, and if he was technically playing a bad guy for the Suicide Squad, I was into it, but other than that, like, I had no idea who Peacemaker was. I didn't know how he was gonna win me over this movie, but he won me over. His naive nature in the film just makes for great comedy, but he can flip the script immediately, and I think he did a phenomenal job in this movie. I was very impressed. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of other great additions of the film, like Michael Rooker. I forgot the character he plays. Nathan Fillion is also in here, and Pete Davidson. Like, they're cool. Yeah. Should you see this movie, and would I recommend it to you? Depends on who you are. If you're just a guy and, like, you're not really into this kind of stuff or superheroes, I don't know. If you're just like anybody who's not into the hyper violent, ultra violent stuff, don't watch this movie, because you're going to come out of it dogging the movie, trashing it for things that aren't even wrong with the movie. You're just gonna dislike it for things that you already disliked before you watched it. But I think that wraps up my review. Again, all the performances were really well done. Cinematography, really good. Visual effects just aided the cinematography, and the score was pretty decent. And overall, I thought this made that 2016 one look like crap, but I'm all open for an Ayer cut of David Ayer's true vision, But anyways, guys, let me know down below, have you gotten a chance to check out The Suicide Squad? It's in theaters, but it's also on HBO Max if you want to stay at home and watch it. Go watch it in theaters, though. You'll get a laugh. You get to watch it with people. It's a lot of fun. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and be sure to stick around, guys, because I'm going to try to my best to get back into the grind. I'm not gonna promise you 5+ videos a week. I'm just gonna slowly ease myself back into it. So stay tuned, guys, because there is more to come.